I'm Simon de la Rouviere. I'm today going to talk about sort of two parts of the personal token stuff. One is some of the things that I invented over the past few years that I think it can be used as a way to facilitate market making and create these personal tokens. And then the second part is just sort of a personal token design that I had in mind for recently, like a year or so ago, that I still think is an interesting implementation. So to start off with, personal tokens is actually one of the big reasons why I got into crypto space at all. Like I found Bitcoin in 2011, and then around 2013 when Dogecoin came out, when I saw Dogecoin for the first time, like it blew my mind, because Dogecoin to me represented the ability to create a currency around any kind of mimetic meaning. Like, here's this Doge funny internet meme. Why can't we create this sort of mimetic currencies for anything, right? It could be cities, it could be ideas, it could be people. And so from there, I had this thought, like, I need to be a part of this. I need to experiment with this. I need to create this. I feel like it could empower a lot of people, could create agency for people that didn't necessarily have access to sort of a legacy financial infrastructure. And so at that point in time, the end of 2013, I think Adam mentioned also a lot on what the scene was like back then, but like nothing meaningful was around, or like great tools to do this stuff. So the only way you could do that was literally to fork Bitcoin or Litecoin. And that's what I did for a sort of decentralized band project. But during that time, I also worked, Adam also mentioned a team called Umint. I worked with them as well. We actually forked Counterparty and put it on Dogecoin, and then it was called Doge Party. And that was just a way to make it cheaper to mint and transfer tokens. But again, all of this was very difficult. And when Ethereum came around, I was so happy because it represented both sort of an ideologically friendly environment, but also a friendly environment for developers to come play with this technology. And so my first sort of modus operandi was, I need to make tokens happen on Ethereum. And that's what I spent a lot of my time in 2015 doing before Ethereum launched. At the end of 2015, after Ethereum launched, I helped design the ERC20 standard. I was a key co-designer on that, and for the reason that I wanted to see tokens happen. And then for a reasonable long while, I thought about token economics, especially the ability to design sort of automated token systems, not sort of this, what I would consider like clunky token models where it's just like, let's mint a new asset, let's ICO it or sell it to some group of funders, and then they have this token and now they have to use it in the network. It felt clunky. We could design new systems that are more dynamic, like play with the supply and shrink and grow it in different manners. And during that time, I experimented with this, spoke to a lot of people in the space, and then eventually I designed the sort of a new economic primitive called token bonding curves. This was actually a sort of simultaneous invention at the same time. The Bancor team also came up with it. I didn't come up with the name. This was a system that I designed as part of a broader project called Curation Markets. But within it was this continuous token model. So for those who are not familiar, I'm just going to quickly briefly sketch what a token bonding curve is. So a token bonding curve is what you can call sort of an economic primitive, something that can be used or reused in different contexts. It's been broadly used in the Ethereum space so far in different contexts. But a token bonding curve essentially sets out a function or relationship between the price of a currency or token and its supply. And it's a hard-coded relationship. And that's why it's a curve, because what you will see, it would generally fit to some curve with its linear or logarithmic or exponential curves. It would set a relationship between those two things. So if there's an automatic relationship, if there's more of the supply available, then the price to make new supply goes up, right? And this would represent sort of an automated relationship, an automated market maker between the supply of the currency and the price that's charged to create this currency. And so if you are someone that wants this token, you can, instead of there being some issuer somewhere that mints it and then you buy it from them, you buy it from this market maker itself. So let's say you have a currency, say Ether, and you want Simon coin. You buy it from the smart contract, and the smart contract mints the new Simon coin based on the current price that is set by this hard-coded sort of algorithm or curve or function. And once these tokens are in circulation, you can sell it back into the bonding curve and take some of this reserve out. So the money goes into a pool. The pool itself grows and shrinks with the supply, and there could be circumstances where if everyone sells all the tokens back into the smart contract, there are no tokens left, there's no supply left. So it would be this automatic dynamic system. It does differ a bit from what we've currently seen in the DeFi space with current automated market makers or constant function market makers like Uniswap, in that token, as I define it at least, or the way I saw it, was that the token bonding curve's primary purpose is to create a dynamic supply of currency. So these automated market makers like Uniswap usually trade between two existing sets of tokens. Like it's not involved with the minting of new supply. There's a lot that's been written about this stuff. There's a lot of videos. People have made a lot of things with it. People have modified and forked the designs to make it do various interesting things. So I definitely recommend, if this was an unclear explanation, to go read up on it. There's a lot of Medium articles and blog posts, and there's a lot of teams that have implemented some of these designs. Chris Robinson will talk more about what they're doing with it in their platform. So using this primitive, like I had this idea for a personal token. So just to give some background on my thinking on personal tokens. So at the end of 2013, when I had these ideas for personal tokens, one of the big things, as Mike also mentioned, was like, I had like a mental stumbling block, which was like, what happens when people die, right? Because this acts differently to a corporation or a company, because a corporation uses people as its resources. So a corporation can outlast the people, right? And so in my head, what I compared, if there was any kind of comparison, it would be the person's mimetic power is actually its sort of underlying value or collateral. So, you know, people might still, if let's say Mike passes away, there would still be people that would be interested in sharing, say, memories around Mike's life and experience, and then there would still be usefulness in having these tokens to share that thing. Or let's say like a big celebrity passes away and had personal tokens. They could, the people could still share links or experiences around that experience. And so the more important thing for me was, it's personal tokens is actually a subset of like just meme tokens, like mimetic tokens. It could be anything, and a person is one such example. So it was important for me to make that mental shift. So like personal tokens is important there. Over the years, you know, as I've worked in a token space, I think one of the biggest things that gave me more sort of trepidation around personal tokens as something that exists is just sometimes it feels like it could be dystopic. And again, Mike also mentioned that as well. And it all depends on how we approach it. Like something can both be empowering and give people agency, but if it's a way to control people or own people in a way that you take agency away, that is dystopic. So that also led me to think of different personal token designs that isn't sort of what we see today, where it's just like a more direct relationship between like the person does something and this token's either access to income that they make, or like you influence their life or in certain capacity, or you get access to certain privileges. So one of these designs was informed when I spoke to Errol, a friend in the blockchain space, around the usage of sort of personal token designs for creating what I would say sort of reputation tokens or social tokens or labeling tokens. So the purpose of this is essentially to have a model where someone can use their existing social or financial capital to leverage themselves. And the way they do this is by issuing sort of labels that they give to other people or institutions or what have you, but by having this label be backed by underlying collateral or money through a bonding curve. So in practice, it will work as follows. Let's say me, Simon, I'm the only buyer of a token bonding curve, it's specific one. I can buy a label from this bonding curve, and then give it to someone or issue it to someone. They can't transfer that label, but what they can do is they can sell that label back into more liquid form of currency. So the buyer mints a label, gives it to others, and this label can be defined by me, what I consider to be a meaningful label. So I'll give examples soon what kind of labels I have in mind, but the consideration for a holder of this label is then essentially, is this label, me holding this label, worth more than this underlying backed up collateral that this label is giving me, right? So this label confers some kind of reputation that is meaningful to me. If it's not meaningful to me, I will just sell it for the money it still is backed by. So examples of this can be like, hey, I'm Simon and I think Chris is a great coder. So I'm going to mint Simon.greatcoder, going to issue it to Chris. Chris can then decide to keep this token that says he is a great coder. But if other people believe that this is a good value signal that's novel, you will keep that label. But if he doesn't believe it's a good label, you will sell it back into the curve, take out the money. Then it could be anything. Like this could be any kind of label that people wish to create. It can be a curve for a great investor. I think Jake is a great investor, or a curve for someone being a good team member, right? So there could be any kind of label that the person decides to create and is ultimately tied to the person that mints these labels. So, you know, it's important that I say Simon believes that Alex is a good community member, right? So there's like different variations that could exist. So it's like a different kind of model where a person then essentially leverages their reputation in a way that influences other people. So it's not necessarily a system where someone can go and say like, this will be a way to fund me, or this is a way for me to sort of empower myself. But what it does do is it allows you to create more sort of spheres of influence by both being someone that curates labels and says these are good and meaningful things that I believe is good and meaningful things, while also at the same time essentially having this label be an award that can be turned into money if people wish to sort of dispense this label back into the underlying collateral. There are ways in which you can turn this into a money-making system for someone that wishes to do this as a personal token. You can, like any kind of award system, people can, if you want this label and you think it's a meaningful label, you can submit a bid. And like awards, it's like you won't necessarily get your money back, but you just want to be put up for consideration. So if I do a good job of being a curator of good labels, and I leverage my financial and social capital to do a good job at that, I can make revenue from doing this. So it's just like a different kind of model where it is about me as a person and what I believe is good and meaningful, but it's not sort of direct income agreements or these kind of other models. So yeah, that is the design. I hope it's clear. I did write a blog post on this in case it wasn't clear. Just social and reputation tokens. You can also go read that. Cool. So
Should we do some questions here?
Yeah, let's go for questions.
Okay, so a question from Brendan Maher from the MIT Computational Law Community and Lao Mentor. Says he's very familiar with bonding. How do you see personal token with ISA and coordinated group moonshots?
So ISA is income share agreements and coordinated group moonshots. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the question is trying to get at, but I would say that ultimately it just presents like another opportunity or an avenue for people to enact themselves in the world, right? So, you know, when we ask ourselves like, I want something to exist, right? Then there are multiple ways to do that. You either like start a company, or you start a nonprofit, or you start an association, or you do it yourself, or you get a grant, or you do it open source. You mint a cryptocurrency, do quadratic public funding. Like there's many avenues, and this provides another avenue for people to do things. And it is its own trade-offs, right? It has its own trade-offs, and I think what's great, at least about personal tokens, is that it at least gives people more flexibility. They don't necessarily have to stick to something beforehand, because you're supporting a person, not necessarily what the person is creating specifically. Yeah.
Where do you believe that the value is located when it comes to a personal token?
I think it depends on the specific design of a personal token. Like some are very explicitly like income share agreements. And those ones, you know, will definitely be backed by the income share that's coming in, like at least like its ceiling floor value. But I think for me, like the reason why I started looking at personal tokens is because it provides this ability for people to have like a more closer connection to the person, right? And you know, I'm pretty sure people like Mike and Alex have experienced this. Like you do create this sort of constellation of people around you that weren't there before if you hadn't done this, right? So, and I think it's also cool, like Mike said, the ability to create experiences between the community members, not necessarily you versus the community members. So I think there's a lot of value there, which I feel is important, is like the sort of coordination value of these tokens.
So we'll say, well, why should I have a personal token?
I guess again, it depends on what you're trying to do. I think what would be great is if there's a certain point where it might be like a no-brainer to do so, just because it gives you more options. But until that's the case, it does come with its own sets of responsibilities that isn't something that many people would like to take on necessarily. You know, it comes with its own sets of problems. So I would say like why you would want it is that you believe that the trade-offs you will make will give you more flexibility and allow you to connect to more people and give you more agency at the trade-off that like you will have now a constellation of people that will probably have a new influence on your life that weren't there before.